Good morning everyone, and welcome to a wee video that Mr. Champion and Mrs. Cooney have made to highlight some of the results that we have accrued from carrying out the pupil, staff and parent questionnaires. These questionnaires went out a couple of weeks ago and were collated last weekend. We've taken time to digest them, to think about what some of the suggestions were, and we've enacted some of the suggestions. So the videos will run through some of the pie charts and the percentages and the bar charts. It's not that boring. Have a wee look at it. It doesn't last long, and you can see what the parents, pupils and staff are thinking about remote learning. And at the end of it, there's a great wee section that both have put together that shows you said, we did. And that's where we have taken on board some of the suggestions that you've made, and we've made adaptations to the way in which we're running remote learning. So in the last week, since the publication of the results, there's already changes been made, and these changes will be followed up again when we're doing online learning after the short-term break. There is one thing that I do have to note, however, and that is that everyone has different views. There are those who are absolutely thriving on remote learning, and there are those who have some anxiety and some uncertainty about moving forward in that mode of learning, and that's entirely natural. So some of the things that you've suggested we either keep doing or change haven't been possible, though where they have been possible, we have made the changes. And my thanks to everyone who took part in the questionnaires that's allowed us to move forward with our remote learning plans. There'll be another video from me about what to expect after the holidays. We're still waiting on the Scottish Government information, but meantime, can I just pass over to Kevin and Anya? Thanks very much.
Hello everybody. Having finished this video, I'm left with a tremendous sense of how our school community has really pulled together over the last month, on top of your huge efforts and resilience since August. There were three key aspects to engaging and consulting with you, our young people, parents, carers and staff. Firstly, to ascertain what is working in terms of remote learning. Secondly, to listen to any concerns or challenges. And thirdly, to identify what further supports we might be able to provide. We had an excellent response with 526 completed questionnaires, 418 from pupils across all year groups, 62 parents and carers, again across all year groups, and 46 teachers and other members of staff. The overall experience of learning remotely is generally positive, with nearly 73% of parents and carers stating that learning was positive or quite manageable, and 11% referring to the challenges. Amongst pupils, there was a similar response, with just 11% saying it was challenging, and there was a similar picture amongst our staff. Very similar responses were received about the quality of the resources being provided, with just 11% of pupils and 8% of parents and carers finding them confusing or difficult. One of the core principles throughout the whole COVID experience has been our emphasis on contact and support from our staff, and these two graphs confirm the positive progress is still being made. 85% of parents and carers and 73% of pupils felt that they have regular routines. And running a normal timetable is one of the differences that people have made helpful comments about, and I'll mention this towards the end. Over 90% of our young people and parents and carers are regularly doing at least 3 and often 4 or more hours of learning each day. In terms of IT difficulties, 5% of young people and 9 parents report ongoing issues. We have done a huge amount to alleviate concerns when they arise, and we will continue to help wherever we can once alerted to such issues. Most people seem to have found somewhere specific to study, although 70% of young people claim not to have a designated space. A similar number of pupils raise concerns that they have about remote learning, and 1/5 of the young people had specific concerns about screen time. This was similarly reflected by parents and carers, and we need to recognise that nearly 48% of 48% of parents and carers are reporting some degree of anxiety about the whole remote learning experience, which is understandable. I think it is worth noting that we as teachers also experience varying degrees of anxiety about the teaching remotely, and that 75% have either some or a lot of concern regarding the amount of screen time we are experiencing.
Recently, we asked you to complete the Tiree Schools Community Survey. We asked you to answer a series of questions in order to give Tiree Primary School and Tiree High School an insight into how remote learning was going. Thank you for taking the time to do this. This has allowed us to reflect on what is going well and where improvements can be made. There now follows a series of graphs with descriptions in order to share the findings of the survey with you. The results I will share with you are based on 56 responses. When we asked how you found the experience of learning remotely, 97% of pupils found it to be very positive, quite manageable, or they had experienced few problems. 2/3 of parents reported similar experiences as their children. When we asked you how you had found the resources that we had provided for the remote learning, 94% of pupils reported that they had found them straightforward, very helpful and supportive, or mainly okay. 83% of parents also reported this, with just 17% of parents finding the resources sometimes a little confusing or difficult. When we asked how you had found contact and support from your teachers, 100% of pupils reported that this was either very supportive, just right, or helpful to know it was there if they needed it. Similarly, 92% of parents reported this too. When we asked you if you had successfully managed to establish regular routines, only 3% of our pupils said that they had not been able to do so. All parents reported that routines had been very, fairly, or partially established. When we asked how many hours of remote learning you had managed each day, 85% of pupils reported they had engaged for 3 hours or more every single day. When we asked if you had had any issues with technology or IT for your remote learning, 100% of all pupils and staff reported that they had either had no issues whatsoever or they had experienced some issues but these had now been fixed. A little over 8% of parents reported that they had experienced continuing IT issues. Please remember that we have a dedicated technical support team to support parents, pupils and teachers, which can be contacted using the enquiries email directly to school. When we asked you if you had been able to set aside a specific space to complete your schoolwork, 75% of pupils reported that they had been able to do this. Just over 9% said they had, but that this space was not really ideal, and the remainder reported that they had not. Next, we asked if you had experienced anxiety caused by remote learning. 97% of pupils who answered this question reported they had experienced some, a little, or no anxiety at all. This leaves 3% reporting they had experienced a lot of anxiety. We have an experienced and dedicated support team guided by their respective principal teachers to support pupils and their families when appropriate. All pupils are able to speak to or message their teachers throughout the school day in order to access the support. Lastly, we asked if you had any concerns regarding screen time. 50% of pupils and parents reported they had no concerns, and the other 50% of pupils and parents reported that they had a little concern or some concern. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you for watching this video, and on behalf of Tiree Primary School and Tiree High School, we wish you all a happy, restful and safe February holiday.
In summarising the 500-odd comments, the issues that were common to everyone included the extensive screen time, the positive and negative effects of running the timetable as normal compared to the last restrictions, recognising the positive impact that face-to-face interactions have on everyone and the issues surrounding workload, time management and getting a balance between learning, teaching and family life and activities. You'll notice that all these points made by you, the pupils, parents, carers and teachers we have anticipated, and that many of these points we have either actioned or have strategic plans in place. You are welcome to rewind or pause this video if you wish to look at any of the 3 summaries in more detail in these slides. I'd like to end by highlighting the great sense of pride so many of you have expressed in your feedback. We have certainly been touched and heartened by the time, consideration and thoughtfulness that so many of you have put into helping us continue to formulate our plans for after half term, and we thank you.